With the release of Venom: The Last Dance approaching, I thought it would be a good idea to go back and review the first two Venom movies starring Tom Hardy. But I also want to talk about some of my theories that I have for Venom: The Last Dance. So let's just jump right into it. Venom was directed by Ruben Fleischer and tries to tell a story with Venom, but without Spider-Man being involved. The movie opens up with a symbiote crashing down onto Earth, and it seems to be looking for something. And then we are introduced to Eddie Brock, who seems to be a journalist of some sorts, who has quite the reputation for taking down corrupt people. But that all goes wrong when he decides to take down the main villain of this movie, Carlton Drake, and ends up getting his whole career ruined, his life is ruined, and his girlfriend hates him. And that's pretty much the beginning of the film, and I will say I do really like the way Eddie Brock is characterized. I think Tom Hardy does a really good job portraying the character, and I really like his performance as Eddie. You get the impression that Eddie is just your average day guy who has just had his entire life flipped upside down. But the movie continues, we get some more scenes of Eddie living his sad life without his girlfriend and without his job, and eventually we get a scene where one of the employees that works for Carlton Drake strongly disagrees with everything that he's doing because it turns out Eddie was right. He's experimenting on people and putting symbiotes into them because he wants to better humanity by just turning them into symbiotes. Yeah, Carlton Drake isn't really the best villain. I'm not gonna lie to you, he's pretty forgettable, and his motivations are just kind of boiled down to evil businessman wants to make the world into aliens because he sees people as useless, basically. But the employee seeks out Eddie and desperately pleads for his help, to which he basically turns her down at the start, but eventually he will go and cave in. And he goes into the facility, he sees what they're doing to people, he's absolutely disgusted, and this all leads into Venom and Eddie finally bonding together, and what follows next is a series of really great scenes of what the symbiote actually is doing to Eddie, and we get the infamous lobster scene, which if you've seen the movie, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is the best part in my opinion, and a lot of it was actually improv by Tom Hardy, which I think is fucking hilarious. But Carlton Drake knows that Eddie has the symbiote, so he's desperately trying to get it back. We get to see some really awesome fight scenes, and we get to see Venom and Eddie bond more. The one thing that I think both of these movies do perfectly is the relationship between Venom and Eddie. More stuff with the symbiote happens, and it's up to Eddie and Venom to stop Carlton Drake and Riot from bringing more symbiotes back to the planet so they can start harvesting and feasting on humans. And they end up stopping him, Carlton Drake dies, and Eddie and Venom live happily ever after. And that's pretty much Venom 2018. It's honestly not a bad movie. It does have its issues, and I feel like the pacing could be a little bit better. But I personally think it's a pretty cool way of making an origin story for a character that is so heavily reliant on Spider-Man, but this movie just decides to not have Spider-Man a part of it, and for the most part, I think it actually works pretty well. But let's not waste any time, let's move on to Venom: Let There Be Carnage. While I do enjoy the first Venom movie, I feel like Let There Be Carnage is way more entertaining. And I feel like that's because the story is so much more engaging, focusing more on the struggles of being bonded to a symbiote, and how Eddie's and Venom's relationship isn't always so perfect, while also just giving us a really cool depiction of Carnage. This time we see Eddie working with the police trying to get the serial killer Cletus Cassidy to confess to his crimes. But we also dive into Eddie's personal life again, seeing that his girlfriend is now going to get married, well, his ex-girlfriend that is. And all the while Eddie and Venom are not really agreeing on how to be the quote-unquote lethal protector properly. And all the while this is happening, Cletus Cassidy eventually escapes prison and looks for his long-lost love, who he has been searching for a very long time. And now it's up to Eddie and Venom to stop Carnage before he truly does some real damage to New York City. Also, I just wanted to say this real quick, but I think another reason I've grown more fond of the Venom movies recently is because they show us a side to New York that we don't really get to see in the average Spider-Man film. I don't really know how to describe it, but when you watch the Venom movies, the New York we see here feels very different to what we would see in your traditional Spider-Man swinging scene of sorts. I don't know, I just think it's kind of cool. It could also be the fact that Andy Serkis directed Let There Be Carnage, and because of that, Let There Be Carnage and the first Venom movie feel very different from each other. I just really love what Andy Serkis did with the VFX and the CGI, and I also really love the cinematography of Let There Be Carnage, so much more than the first Venom movie. Not to say that Ruben Fleischer did a bad job or anything, but I don't know, it just feels like Let There Be Carnage has a lot more artistic expression in it. My only complaint is with Carnage himself. The way they portray Carnage in this movie, I'm not a total fan of, because a big plot thread in this movie is that Carnage and Cletus aren't a perfect match, when in the comics they are a perfect match, so much to the point where they don't refer to themselves as we, just they are the same person. So it's a little bit of a drastic change. I'm also not a big fan of the fact that Carnage doesn't really have a motivation in this film. He just kind of wants to kill Venom, whereas Cletus Cassidy is actually much more fleshed out character and has proper goals. I also think Woody Harrelson nailed the role of Cletus. He did such a good job. I know that there was a deleted scene where Carnage's plan was basically to reproduce with Cletus's love interest so that they could start a new planet symbiote, which is a little weird, but I would have rather they kept it in the movie so that he has proper motivations and goals and like an actual plan instead of just, grr, I'm evil, I want to kill Venom. Besides that, though, this movie is a really fun time, and I genuinely think it's pretty solid. It's much better than the first, way more entertaining, the fight scenes are great, the CGI is fucking gorgeous. I just wish that this movie was rated R, though. I feel like that would have made it a lot better. They make the most of Carnage within a PG-13 setting, though, so I can't complain too much. Alright, now that we've talked about the first two Venom movies, now I'm going to give you my small theory of what's to come in Venom: The Last Dance. I believe that the post-credit scene will lead into Spider-Man 4, which is going to be a multiverse movie, but it's going to be the movie where Tom Holland and Tom Hardy's Venom finally meet. And that is going to be the whole movie. It's just them meeting. Maybe they team up to fight a bigger threat. Who knows? I mean, the movie takes place on Battleworld. For all we know, they could have a fight. But that is my opinion. I think that's going to happen. The main reason I think this is going to happen in Venom: The Last Dance is because Tom Holland went on Twitter and he was talking about doing a secret shoot for like a singular day, and Spider-Man fans were quick to notice that he was going into Amy Pascal's office, who actually produces a lot of these Sony spin-offs. So that's my take. Anyways, see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching.